one of the main things that I hear people say is that the word rapture is not in the Bible. And
Not only is the word rapture not in the Bible, but the examples of rapture are also not in the Bible. And so this is an issue I have with this woman. The examples that she gives in this video, it doesn't, no matter how authoritative she sounds, and no matter how pretty the microphone is, um, the example she gives with Paul and the one that she gives with Philip, the one that she gives with Philip, okay, that's not an example of a rapture because Philip ends up in a separate location on earth, just like, um, is it, what's the book? What's the book? There's another book in the Bible besides the other example that she gave. I think it was Ezekiel. It's where he, the one that saw the wheel within the wheel, and the one that saw, whether the Lord told him to go give a word, and he was also caught up and ended up in a separate location on earth. I made a video about that, but that was on one of my accounts that was banned. So incredibly interesting because I had never read that before. And I actually was trying to study the map and find out from where to where did he go. I wanted to be 100% sure that he actually translocated. He translated Harpazo translation, and that's what he did. And then that's not in her video, but then in her video, she also gives the example of Paul and the thorn in the flesh in 2 Corinthians 12. Paul is talking about a man who was caught up to the third heaven and heard things that he was that he heard things, and sandwiched around that is sandwiched between Paul talking about his visions and his revelations. This is talking about someone being so spiritual. Paul is basically saying there's a man that's even more spiritual than me, that he was actually caught up to heaven and heard things. This is sandwiched between talking about revelations and visions. This is also not a rapture. This is things that people can do on earth. Very, very spiritual people have been caught up. The Lord has shown them things, and they came right back down. They were spiritually caught up. Paul said, whether in body or out of body, right? Because some people on this earth are caught up out of body, and no, not astral projection, not doing this illegally in the spirit, but God is causing this to happen, and they're being caught up out of body for an experience. They're not being snatched up into heaven. That's not rapturo. That's not rapture. So she sounds very authoritative, but yet the examples that she gives, a lot of people will suck onto the tone instead of the words. In 2025, we need to listen to the words and really also think for ourselves, because God has given us all that ability to think for ourselves. The example she gives of the seals and wrath doesn't prove anything that there's a rapture of the church either. And when on the last trumpet and all this, read the book of Revelations. What do the trumpets represent? At the last trump, the trumpets. Well, at the sixth seal, the sun and the moon are darkened, the stars fall, there's plagues. It's just like the verse in the Bible that says, look up for your redemption draweth near. The verses before that tell you what happens before Jesus arrives on the scene. The other thing that in one of the verses that she read, was about incorruptible and corruptible and inheriting the kingdom. The incorruptible cannot inherit the corruptible cannot inherit the incorruptible kingdom, right? Well, where is the kingdom going to be established? It's going to be established here on earth. God, the Bible says that those that are martyred, etc., those that are martyred, those that, I think those that endured into, those that are martyred specifically will reign with him here on earth. This is when Zion will be restored. So when it talks about inheriting the kingdom, the question is, where will the kingdom be? Which kingdom? What kingdom are we talking? What is the kingdom? that we will inherit. Exactly. This is also a big part of people being deceived in those times, thinking that God has already established his kingdom here, that God has already established and is sitting in the temple. But that's not going to be him. Let no man deceive you. It will come after every eye sees Jesus, from the east to the west. But also in Matthew, I think it's Matthew, it says that there will be a tribulation like no other, that like has never happened before, which means tribulations have happened, and we see it throughout the Bible. His disciples and his prophets went through tribulation. But it says, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. Excuse me, it says, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. Also in the Bible, it says the days were shortened for the sake of his elect. Jesus is talking to his people. Why would he be talking to his people if it had nothing to do with his people? The question is, has Ashley spoken about people being raptured before things get hard? Because at the last trumpet, that's the seventh seal. So think about what happens at the sixth. Think about that one. And the examples that she gave simply do not prove a rapture the way she portrays it to do in this video. Being caught up in the clouds does not necessarily mean a rapture. How do you get to a different location if you're not caught up first? And she did show us those examples, getting caught up and going to a different location.